let's talk about Google announced Google Cloud Universal Ledger in kind of a unique way. The executive in charge of it posted on LinkedIn describing it.
Strong start.
It seemed like a little bit
Is
of
that
like
the only place it went out?
Yeah. And there were some articles written and tweets, but it seemed like a little bit of FOMO from Stripe and Circle's announcements. But we've had 3 solutions announced from. We talked about Circle Arc and Stripe Tempo in a previous episode, and now Gluck.
It's called Gluck.
It's GCUL. GCUL. Google Cloud Universal Ledger.
But I think my reading of it, it's not a blockchain. It's just a database hosted by Google.
Yeah.
So
much like every other blockchain that's not Bitcoin. Interesting. Okay.
Well, no, much more efficient because other like blockchains are very inefficient databases. This presumably is a super efficient database because they don't. Only Google controls it. Only Google hosts it. So, and it's like it seems like, they're observing the rapid rise and growth of stablecoins, trillions of dollars being transacted and growing rapidly. And this is their entry into this. And so it's super interesting to see Google enter the fray. It seems to me like it's a credible option because why do you need the decentralization that Bitcoin has when you're just hosting dollars issued by centralized entities that are heavily controlled by the US? So Google might have the smartest strategy in the space because everyone else is developing their own layer 1 or using Solana or Ethereum, super inefficient databases, and Google just let's just use a traditional database.
Fuck it, let's be honest. Okay, so
they do call it a blockchain, even though it is just
no, they don't.
Right? Oh, they don't. Okay,
some people have called. I don't know if it was in the original
they
post.
They don't. No, they actually have. So they have a. I sent it out to you guys. You should look at it. They have a fairly lengthy post describing their view of the entire space, and I searched for the word blockchain, and it's referenced 3 times, but not describing their product.
Oh, okay.
Although I think critically it does claim in there that they are quote credibly neutral. Whatever that means.
I think credibly neutral means something different than what we mean when we say credibly neutral for Bitcoin. I think the neutrality is not that it's a neutral database; it's that they are a neutral player.
Yeah, I get your point.
Among the partners, there's a very few small set of select partners who are allowed to contribute to it, and they are not at least today, they're not in direct competition with these partners. They're credibly neutral from a infrastructure perspective, but not from a decentralization or sovereignty perspective.
So I just want to give a quick shout out. If you guys haven't seen this or read this yet, Alan Farrington's piece, a half-baked thesis on stablecoins. Have you guys read that yet?
I haven't read it. I think you shared it in the chat, right?
Read it.
I need to catch it.
We can discuss it next week. I got to give a shout out to Alan. Alan is once again, right? I mean, look, very, very high level. I think this is what we were kind of getting at 2 weeks ago when we were talking about tempo. If you look at, and this goes back to my old days when I used to be at a fund investing in crypto, and I'd always ask, the central question. I'd be like, okay, well, if you are sacrificing decentralization, so Bitcoin is completely decentralized and therefore is a giant pain in the ass to run. There have been battles fought over the megabyte size of the blocks, all this stuff to keep it decentralized, right? And so what every other crypto project has realized over time is, hey, we can get easier, faster throughput, more throughput, all this stuff. We make it a little bit more centralized. And so increasingly then you have Ethereum, which is sort of decentralized, but sort of not. And so it ended up in this Frankenstein state. And then it starts getting out competed by Solana, which is basically just well, we've got, I don't know how many it is, 10 nodes and we're decentralized, whatever. And then they get out competed because who's the number one stablecoin ledger that's doing all this? Tron. I don't even know does Tron even pretend to be a blockchain at this point? Maybe. But they're essentially a centralized database. And then you've got, if you go back to 2019, I think one person whose take I would value very highly on this is David Marcus, because David Marcus was at Facebook, Libra. That was their project where they were going to try and issue a stablecoin on their database. And why is the reason that they didn't do it? Regulation. Because the government and all these other players are not like, wait a second, hold up. We're going to let a private company controlled by Mark Zuckerberg, who the Senate is very familiar with, control the giant database of transactions happening in the world. No, and that gets shut down. What has changed since then? And I actually, this is like, I found myself literally completing Alan's sentences in a podcast about his paper, is like the only innovation, and to be clear, stablecoins are better than dollars, but that just shows how antiquated and backwards dollars and the dollar system is. And that's because it's a heavily regulated field. Therefore, you can't have freedom like the internet, which allows innovation to happen quickly. So that's why it's so backwards. People are realizing this stablecoin thing, which increasingly is moving from sort of like blockchain and name only to just centralized databases, are better than the old world. Yes, because the old world was built in like Cobalt in 1970 or 50 or whenever. So like, yeah, these are better. But like the only innovation here, as Alan said, is literally just confusing regulators. It's like throwing so many buzzwords and crypto and blockchain that people are like, yeah, like we should probably allow this thing. And then to their credit, it got adoption. And because it got adoption, all of a sudden it's like, well, now Tether using Tron, it seems kind of too big to shut down. It's like massive. And like, oh, by the way, they're buying our treasuries. Yeah, blockchain, crypto, knock yourself out, guys. Keep buying the treasuries. And then even more, you know, then you have the Trump administration come in, and the Trump administration, you know, there's pros and cons. They're, you know, more open and freedom to certain things, but it's like kind of in a nihilistic way, in my opinion, where it's just like, fuck it, we're going to launch our own tokens, coin, knock yourself out. There's no like ideology behind this. And so now there is this like window of time where, in the way I see it, what Facebook and David Marcus tried to do in 2019 and got shut down, there's kind of this window where it's like, we can just launch a database. And in the old world, that would have been heavily regulated, and maybe it still will be, maybe it won't. But
so it's a window of time during the Trump administration, and then who knows in 3 years.
Exactly.
But the Genius Act was passed by Congress, so that will survive. Or I mean, it's much harder to overturn that with the new administration. So that's different. But I mean, I'm interested in talking about the thesis where tech companies, fintech companies, use this to usurp banks, right?
Yeah.
And so we talked a little bit prior to the show about finding ways to share the yield from the treasuries backing stablecoins. And the Genius Act explicitly doesn't allow sharing that yield with customers, at least directly. I haven't read the specific language about how tight or loose that language is. But I'm sure that language was introduced because banks wanted it there, because banks don't want to see people switch from the bank, traditional bank, to this new system. But of course, the Stripes and Circles and Googles of the world, Robinhoods, would obviously love the trillions of dollars flow from banks to themselves. And then the U.S. government, I forget which of you said it, but you know, definitely likes the Tethers and Circles of the world being some of the largest buyers of U.S. treasuries in the world. That's what feeds our system. And like countries like China are buying much less U.S. treasuries. So who's the new buyers? So what do we think about that? Like, how realistic is it for these tech companies to overtake banks through stablecoins, or like what Google's doing?
I mean, I'll outline a specific kind of example that I was discussing in the group chat, and I want to hear kind of more what you guys think about this. So I think Genius Act, I think, is very clear that sharing yield to the holders of the stablecoin is disallowed, and but we know that like the yield that you can get on treasuries is there's probably more juice in the rewards that you could share than like a traditional credit card interchange fee. Is that true? Do we think that's true, or we mostly believe that's the case?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why there's a threat, right? Like yield on treasuries is better than interchange, and the rewards programs to end users come from the interchange fees that merchants pay. And so yield would be a juicier pot to pull from. So Genius Act, as you said, specifically disallows that yield being shared. But in a sense, these are businesses, they have balance sheets, they have all kinds of partnerships and distribution deals. So I think I forget who mentioned it in the chat, but the specific example that seems very credible to me is that the Genius Act disallows sharing the yield, but the issuer of the stablecoin does a distribution deal with, say, a Robinhood, right? It's like kind of a forward-looking thing, and they're like, hey, for every customer you acquire, everybody who holds our stablecoins, we get this much in value. And then it's like the distribution partner who actually gives the benefit. So the thing that you get from your credit card company today that's paid by your interchange fee, your Robinhood chooses to give you gold or some made up something or other, some other kind of rewards program that's effectively backed out of the stablecoin yield or some share of the stablecoin yield. And that goes directly to consumers where they're getting the benefit of the yield while skirting the letter of the law.
Right. And it wouldn't be marketed as, oh, you're getting X% interest on your deposit. Exactly. It would be framed a very different way, but you're effectively getting the same amount of money.
Collect these points and you get a trip to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So that seems like we already know the distribution deals happen and the profits are shared. That's known. Mm-hmm. And then these consumer incentives, I think, undoubtedly will occur as well.
And I think the JP Morgans of the world are not going to be the first to do those kinds of things. I think the Robinhoods of the world are.
And the JP Morgans of the world are also not just going to like sit by idly though, right? So I think there's a couple of interesting points here. One, yes, this is a great observation. Like tech companies can move fast. They see an opportunity. They're seizing it. Good for them. I get why Stripe's doing it. I get why Google's doing it. I think again, it's like it reflects on the sort of the like sad nihilistic state of the world, but like it is what it is. What I think is more interesting though is two things. One, what this is effectively doing and what you're seeing playing out is, you know, we thought the battle was with the central bank. No, it's like to your point, it's with the banks. And so in some ways, this is actually a very good thing systemically, because what is Tether with, you know, getting all this yield on their treasuries? They're a fully reserved bank. They're just a bank, but they're fully reserved in theory. Like I know you can't prove it, audit it, whatever. But like, what's interesting is like, you're basically.
It doesn't claim that it's okay to not be fully reserved.
True. But exactly. And what's interesting is like,
the current system claims it's fine to not be fully reserved. Tether claims we are fully reserved, and we don't know if that's true or not. But like, at least it assumes that it should not be fractional.
Exactly. And it shines this kind of like really fascinating light. And it's so funny to watch all of this play out. And like, again, read Alan's piece. Like he's so right. It's because like you're watching kind of like all of these old fintech players and stuff who are very sophisticated in the world of business, but just do not understand money. And this is the problem in Silicon Valley with Bitcoin forever. They get attacked. They do not understand money. Like they'll never understand why gold was ever viable, or eventually they will, but it's going to take another decade to play out. So we're kind of watching this like almost like slow motion car crash happening where they're all like, hey, like really interesting. We can just hold the treasuries. Like, why didn't everyone do that? And then it's like this like, bank, and you kind of like, you know, that little meme where it's like the little Muppet and you're like, hey, you weren't just making up money out of thin air, JPM, were you? And then the little Muppet looks over and you're like, what? And you realize he only had 10% reserves in the first place. And that's like, literally that's what's playing out. And then eventually they're going to go, well, how does that work that you can like only have 10% reserves? What if you blow up? And they're going to shine the light on the Federal Reserve. And it's going to be like, wait a minute, you weren't just making stuff up out thin air, were you? And the Federal Reserve Muppet's going to look over and be like, and then everything comes back to Bitcoin. So that's one way I see the next 10 years playing out. But the other thing I think is really important is, and this is what makes me very bullish on Bitcoin and Lightning, is the internet versus intranets. The challenge these guys are all going to run into, in my mind, and maybe Google is in a better spot, but I doubt it, is credibly neutral. If Stripe has a chain and JP Morgan's just not going to sit there, like Jamie Dimon's not going to sit there and just like take this, like he's going to come out and launch his chain. And then Google's going to have theirs, and Google's credibly neutral. Like, well, who trusts Google? Is Facebook? Absolutely not. Like all of these guys, what I think we're watching, it reminds me, we're almost like watching like corporate blockchains play out in 2017. They're all going to launch chain, and some of them are going to get along and like work together, but most of them are not. And there's going to be a lot of people who are like, dude, JP Morgan, I'm never hooking up with Wells Fargo. Facebook, I'm never hooking up with Google. Apple's just going to be like, fuck all y'all. Like I'm sitting this out. And so then you start asking the questions like, well, then who's going to market make between them? And sure, Bridge is today, but like that requires, again, if these are all permissioned, every party has to agree to be a part of that. And when you have ones that don't, then how are you going to get the exchange between those? It's going to be extremely inefficient, extremely complicated. And this is going to take multiple years to play out before everyone in Silicon Valley realizes, oh shit, the way to do this is to plug in the internet, Bitcoin Lightning.
But I agree with that. But I still I don't think they're acting dumb. I think they
I
can
agree.
make a ton of money over the next 10 years. Like the dollar's not going away in the next 10 years. I think I think it's a good thing. It's disrupting the banks across different angles is good.
Yeah.
So getting tech and fintech companies in here to potentially, disrupt banks, I think that's great. I do agree though that it'll play out the way you're talking about, like partnership here and here, and it's just a subset of. It is basically recreating what already exists, but they can make a lot of money, and then because it will just recreate what already exists, Bitcoin will just keep strengthening, keep being this global financial network, and the companies that are betting on it,
Exactly.
like Block and Lightspark and like Lightning Labs, Tether, they benefit if it plays out like we just said. They benefit because over the next 5 years, all those companies will just further develop their assets, strengthen, build great products, great customer experiences,
expertise,
business models, expertise, and all the other tech companies will then realize, or they'll make a lot of money, but then
very short term.
Then they'll still be starting at zero in 5 years to get on Bitcoin.
You laid it out perfectly. And so when you say it's smart, I mean, it depends. It depends on what's your time horizon. Like if you're just kind of coming in, like, how do we plunder as much as possible? Like, let's put it this way. Silicon Valley is a very long Stripe, a much longer Block in this world. Sure, Stripe's gonna make a hell of a lot of money and just like kind of like raid the cupboard while they can. Meanwhile, Block is becoming a giant in the background that like is betting on the future and will be around in 50 years.
Most disagreements in the world come down to a difference in timing.
Yeah. Just like the crypto people and the crypto VCs, some of them made a killing in 2017 and 2018. Multicoin, one of the best performing funds of all time. How many of their tokens have any traction ever? Zero. And so it's just like, I mean, play fiat games, win fiat prizes. If you're that money hungry, enjoy in the short run. Meanwhile, companies that are building for 2100, we'll see you there.